Ladies and gentlemen, in today's video, I am going to be giving you 10 times in my life where I have looked like an absolute psychopath. Now, you can word this however you want. 10 times I have severely embarrassed myself. 10 times I've made myself look like an idiot. 10 times I've overreacted. Either way, these are 10 moments in my life where I have done something to leave either one person or an entire room speechless, thinking that I am a lunatic. Couple of plugs before we start. Don't forget to use code Wyatt's World on G Fuel or Prize Picks. You can save yourself a discount on any G Fuel products or match up to $100 of your first deposit. But that's all I've got. Let's get into 10 times I looked like a psychopath. Okay, super quick disclaimer. I should have said this in the intro, but I would also like to add that none of these have happened within the last 5 to 6 years of my life. Like, I like to think I've really calmed down and matured as a human, but teen and early 20s Wyatt, he was a different animal. So, first story we've got in no particular order is the time that I snapped my skateboard in half. And not by a trick, not by something cool. So, when I was a kid, I always liked to skateboard, but I was never ever good at it. I could ollie and pop shove it, and that was about it. So anyway, one day I was out skateboarding with my friends and we were going around town, and there was some really cool areas that you could go where they had like benches and rails and stuff. And our plan was to just kind of spend the entire day skateboarding around and going to different spots. So what did I do at the first place we went? Tried to do a kickflip. Skateboarders will understand this pain, but if you don't move your foot to the right enough when you do a kickflip, sometimes the board will smack up and hit you right in the ankle extremely hard. And that's what happened maybe 10 minutes into our skateboarding trip, and then I took my skateboard, whipped it at the ground as hard as I could, and stomped on it. Then Wyatt had to spend the next 3 hours walking behind everybody because I didn't have a skateboard. I remember my friend asking me as we were walking to the second place, being like, dude, you know we're not going back home. Like, why didn't you just take a break? Why did you break your skateboard? To this day, I still don't have a good answer for him. Moving on, we got the time I threw a baseball as hard as I possibly could at a neighbor kid. So Kid Wyatt was also kind of devious in the aspect that if you did anything to provoke me or my friends in a negative way, you were gonna get whatever you did back at you 100 times harder. Anyway, back to the story. One day, me and the neighborhood kids were out playing a game of baseball. Then all of a sudden, the neighbor kid that my parents didn't even like, by the way, we'll give him a nickname, Cody. Cody came walking across the park asking if he could play with us. After all of us said no and turned him down, he picked up a baseball that was laying somewhere in the field and threw it at my friend Zach. Now keep in mind, he shouldn't have thrown the baseball, but I mean, he just kind of, it was like a screw you, and lobbed it, and it kind of hit my friend and bounced off. So what did I do? I went and grabbed that baseball and as hard as I possibly could, whipped it at him, and it smoked him in the knee. The scream he let out and the look my friends gave me, you would have thought I just killed him. His mom came out screaming. She was in tears asking what the fuck was wrong with me. Everyone was looking at me like, what the hell? And I remember that ended up scaring me to the point where I thought I was going to jail. I was like 10 years old at the time. But yeah, another example, child Wyatt was an absolute psycho. All right, next up, we got the time I bit my microphone at work. Like, I mean, bit it to pieces. So if you've ever worked in a warehouse before, you have had something probably similar to what you're seeing in the picture, and that is called a voice picker. Basically, it's just a headset that's connected to the cloud in the warehouse, and you can talk to the computers and make sure you're getting the right orders. Anyway, these things were shit at the warehouse I worked at, meaning it never heard what you were saying, it never picked up what you were saying correctly, and you constantly had to repeat yourself. I remember one day it was a really long shift, and this fucking thing would not understand what I was saying, and at the same time when I was yelling at it, the mic kept hitting me in the mouth like this, and then the next time I tried to call in the order and it said repeat, it like hit my mouth and I just fucking bit it. Like simulation, if this is it, my finger, this is what I did. DCE aisle 1 row 2, DCE aisle 1 row, DC. So then I had to go to my boss and ask for a new headset. He took a peek at it, gave me a really weird look, asked what happened. I said I stepped on it. He gave me another weird look because he knew I didn't step on it. Handed me another microphone, and I turned around and walked out the door without saying a word. Ever since that day, I don't think our relationship was ever the same. Next story we got is the time I shattered my golf driver in front of my friends. So I feel like anybody who has played the sport of golf would understand that it's also one of the most frustrating sports out there. Golf is one of the only sports where you can feel like you're doing everything right and just be doing everything so wrong. That being said, I have something in my swing called a slice, and that is where you hit the ball and it feels great, but as soon as you hit it, the ball takes off to the right and just whips. Always goes out of bounds into trees. It's frustrating. It sucks. So I remember about 6 holes into our 18 holes of golf, and after what was my 6th slice in a row, I walked back towards the golf cart and I wrapped my driver around it. Instant shatter, 2 pieces, fiberglass went everywhere. Now the thing about it is my friends were dying. They thought this was the funniest thing they've ever seen. But the group waiting behind us to tee off, they were scared of me for the remainder of that round. Also, I wasn't too happy that I just threw $250 in the ground either, but I'll never forget the time I shattered my driver. Now we've got a more recent one. This is when I was living in the cities yet, so maybe it was only about 3 or 4 years ago now. But we have the time that I pounded on my neighbor's wall at midnight as hard as I possibly could to get them to shut the fuck up. Again, maybe this was a little bit justified, but was it the biggest overreaction I've ever had, and did it make living next to them awkward for the next 6 months? Absolutely. So me and my old roommate Casey, we were just gaming. It was a Friday night, playing some Madden, and we lived in like these brick townhomes where the inside walls were concrete, meaning they didn't have insulation. Sound traveled through them real easy. And the neighbors to the right of us was a couple. His name was Vance or Vince. He was actually fucking awesome. And then his girlfriend. These two fought all the time. Every day they fought, just screamed at each other. And to be fair, it sounded like it was mainly him trying to de-escalate it and her just fucking going off on him every day. But this time it was bad. It was really loud. It wasn't ending. Me and my friend were just trying to chill. We're just playing Madden, but we couldn't even hear the music because they were yelling so loud. So I got up like I was in the SWAT team, walked over to the wall, and I'm talking as hard as I could about 10 fucking bam, 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 bam. I knocked a picture off of our own wall. I hit it so hard. My roommate was so mad after that, dude. He's like, why did you just do that? We live next to them. Which then it immediately hit me. Oh shit, I shouldn't have done that. And I don't think the neighbors said a word to us until we moved out. Next up, we got the time I silenced an entire full bowling tournament and had every single participant staring at me. So bowling, much like golf, is looked at as a leisure activity, but can end up being one of the most frustrating things out there. And for those who are bowlers, you guys would know the constant pain that you suffer when you stone a 10 pin, or if you're a lefty, a 7 pin. What that means is that you absolutely bury the ball in the pocket, the pins erupt, you couldn't have thrown a better shot, yet the corner pin stands untouched. So we are bowling in this team tournament, a Baker tournament they call it, where there's 5 of us working together, and I am just stoning 10 pins every single shot I have. And I think it was probably the 5th or 6th matchup that we were in. I did it again. And that thing you walk on when you bowl, when you go up to throw the ball, that's called an approach. Well, I sent my foot down onto that approach as hard as I fucking could. Not kidding you, it sounded like a gunshot. I mean, I'm shocked I didn't break it. But it was one of those moments where as soon as I did it, everything around me, like I felt the noise, everything stopped. And I slowly looked up, and there was probably 400 people staring at me with their jaws like this. I never felt like a bigger ass in my entire life. Like, they actually thought I was insane. Next up, we got the casino story where I terrified an old lady and had to leave a poker table. So this was actually on my 18th birthday, but I finally was able to legally go and gamble. Me and my friends played poker all the time, so we all went to the casino. We're all having fun, we're playing slots, blackjack, and then eventually decide, hey, let's go play some Texas Hold'em poker. So we all sit down at this dollar game and we're playing. Okay, 18-year-old me didn't really understand how much dollar games could actually turn into as quick as they could, so I'm not doing too well. I'm losing pretty much all my money. And then finally I get in a hand where I hit a straight. That's when you have 5 cards in a row. So I went all in. Okay, everybody who was in the hand folded besides one person, and that was an old lady. She calls, puts her cards down, the dealer does the draw, and I thought she had a flush, which is 5 cards of the same suit. That would beat a straight. So I literally stood up with my cards like this and spiked them at the table and went, fuck! The only problem, she didn't have a flush. She only had 2 pair. I won the hand. All it took was her facial expression for me to immediately just get up and leave. Up next, we had the eye-opening moment to myself that, hey, you're a psycho. So the year is roughly 2013, and I'm playing Modern Warfare 2, the original. I played that game for like 5 years. I think a lot of people did. It's a summer day, I'm gaming, nobody's home. I'm doing really good. I remember specifically I was on Quarry, the map, in my chopper gunner, and I died 1 to 2 kills off of the nuke. I took my Xbox 360 controller and whipped it into my closet door. Half the controller was obliterated and half of it was literally hanging out of the door. I remember standing in my room in one spot just staring at it and saying audibly to myself, what the fuck, dude? Took the controller out, out, put a poster over the hole, didn't say a word about it until I moved out where I replaced the door. I have done a lot of stupidly destructive things in my day, but yeah, tomahawking a controller at a closet door, that was an eye-opening one. Next up, we got the time that I exploded at a college professor and walked out of the room and dropped the class. This one I will stand my ground on and I will defend myself. I did the right thing here, but that doesn't mean that people didn't think I was crazy. So I had a history professor in college. His name was David L. We'll just say that. And this guy was the biggest fucking asshole on planet Earth. And he had little man syndrome too, which if you don't know what that means, it means you're really short and you're pissed about it, so you gotta be mean and feel powerful. So after about a week in his class, which the dropout period was 2 weeks, this guy was just screaming at us. Every period, every kid. Like, he was mean. He was so mean. If you answered a question wrong, he would belittle you in front of the class like an asshole. So anyway, one time I forgot my book to his class, and he came up to me right in the middle of the classroom and started grilling me. Calling me irresponsible, saying I was wasting his time by making him stop teaching to find out where my book was, asking why I paid to be in his class if I wasn't going to take it serious, and I snapped. I stood up with my notebook and my folder in my hands, and I said, you know what? You're right. I'll just quit. And then immediately he's like, well, no, I don't want you to quit. He had this raspy voice, kind of like Sean McVay. And I took my folder and my notebook and I slapped it onto his chest and said, no, you're a fucking jackass, word for word, and I walked out of the room. I had a few other classes with some people who were in that class. Felt like they kept their distance from me after that, even though, like I said, I felt like I did the right thing. And ending the video, I saved the best for last. It's the time I smashed a Game Boy SP over my head. So the year is probably 2007, 2008, and me and my friend Eric, who was one of my best friends at the time, are playing Game Boy together. When I say Game Boy together, I mean we were just like probably watching TV. He was on his Game Boy, I was on mine, and we were both playing Pokemon. Anyway, it was specifically Pokemon Leaf Green. I was in the Elite Four, and I was fighting Lance. He was the last person before the champion, and he was an absolute prick to face. He had a Dragonite that just ruined your life. Anyway, I ended up losing to Lance because my Pokemon ran out of moves, so he had to use Struggle and ended up killing himself. So I took the Game Boy SP like this, I was holding it where the screen was up here, and I whapped it on my forehead as hard as I possibly could. Just whap! To be honest, I don't know what was more amusing, the screen being a big ink blob or my friend's facial expression. There was a super awkward silence for like 10 seconds, and then we went outside. To be honest, I don't think we've talked about that since. And that is gonna be it, ladies and gentlemen, for 10 times I have been a psychopath in my life. Hope you guys liked this video and found it funny. Make sure to show love if you did enjoy it, but in the meantime, I'm gonna get this edited so you guys can watch it on time. Hope you all have a fantastic Thursday. Have a great weekend if I don't see you again this week, and as always, I will see you in the next video.